back, everybody. This is the Resistance Broadcast, TRB. We're the podcast of StarWarsNewsNet.com. I'm John. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you're new to TRB, we know a lot of people have joined us recently. Welcome. The base is open. Tell your friends. Join us. It's always a good time. This is our Thursday show. It's our discussion show. James and Lacey with me, as always. Guys, I know we're going to get to it a little bit later. We have an interview that we did with Yoshi Vu, who is an environmental artist for The Mandalorian and The Rise of Skywalker. And I had such a good time talking to him. I wasn't sure where it was going to go because there's a lot of things he can't talk about specifically. So how much were we going to get to? But I really felt like we were able to get a good vibe of what it's like to do what he does from just literally an environmental situation. But what did you guys think? I don't want to give away too much, but what did you guys think?
He's super chill.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah. I was very excited to be able to just kind of get that unique perspective. I think anybody listening is going to enjoy the interview because he's a fan, and it's cool
Without
to
a
see
doubt.
someone. I don't know, how the fandom is sometimes. Like, people who are working on this aren't fans, or they threw this thing together, and it's like this interview again is another one of those things where you're like, no, man.
Right.
They love it and they work really hard on it. So
Yeah, without getting too cheesy, on the same kind of fan track, just the idea that he's been a fan for so long and his whole life and doing fan films in high school, and now he's worked for ILM and is working on things that he cares about, and he's working in Star Wars and designing things. Talk about the dream of a fan. Is you dream that you're going to grow up and make movies and make Star Wars, and here's another person attached to these projects that lives, breathes, wants to do Star Wars. And he gets into a little bit about working on other projects that it just doesn't have the same weight to him as a Star Wars project does, which was cool to hear.
Yeah. And we're going to get to that in a little bit after our first few segments, so stay tuned for that around the middle of the show. But, guys, one thing I wanted to bring up real quick before we get into Will of the Force, it's back, baby. Such a subtle back, baby, yeah.
That was very weird.
Throw that in there, back, baby. The three of us are so confident in our new t-shirt store that we decided none of us would wear our gear tonight. But our new store, head over to
hasn't arrived yet.
Oh, you bought some new gear already?
Yeah, I got a sweatshirt.
Oh, I gotta get a sweatshirt too. I was thinking about that. Even though it's about to get warmer weather-wise, still. Teespring.com/stores/resistance broadcast. We axed and shelved some of our designs that we love, but we felt like we had some new designs coming in. Mando Fan Show shirt. We launched the Sith shirt. What are we calling that, James? Did we decide what we're calling that one?
One True Emperor.
One True Emperor is already on the site, so it's like the parallel.
Raise Grandpa.
It's the parallel to the I Am All the Jedi shirt. It's I Am All the Sith.
Yeah.
In the Revenge of the Jedi original font, actually, with Sheev on the back. So check that out. And then a bunch of other stuff. We redid our logos and all that sort of stuff. And James did all that. So good job, James. You put so much.
Revenge of the Sith.
No, but it was Revenge of the Jedi first. We know about that. Not much, I guess. Yeah.
What are you talking about, John?
The original font was for Revenge of the Jedi before it was Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, but the font we use for the shirt is from Revenge of the Sith.
Look, we'll mince words, but the bottom line
It
is...
looks great.
It looks great.
That's all that matters.
And James, as I was trying to... James interrupted me complimenting him, and that is the most beautiful thing I could
He's
think
like,
of.
how dare you?
He's like, oh, wait, you're talking...
Because I don't know what you're talking about.
So James spent so much time getting the store ready, redoing the logos... phone conversations with Lacey, phone conversations with me about what shirts we should get rid of, what shirts we should have. It's so much time that went into it, and boom, it's out. And good job, James. Good stuff.
Thanks.
Way to be. But now we're gonna put you back to work, James, because Will of the Force, I gotta do it better. It's back, baby. Let's go, man.
So weird.
I fear nothing, for all this, as the Force wills it.
All right, well, Will of the Force this week. Again, thanks, Cheer, for that marvelous introduction.
He always does it the
we're gonna
same
be
every
doing-
time. It's amazing.
Do I?
No, cheer it.
Oh yeah,
He hits it every time.
Every time.
you know what I mean? That's a professional. That's
a
what I'm
pro.
talking about.
Yeah.
It's just knowing your cue, knowing when you got to deliver. And it used to be better on film too, because they knew they had to get it. But today it's digital and you can edit. No, I don't know what I'm talking about. All right. Little Keanu Reeves in there. We're going to be doing 4 questions today, and 2 of those questions come from our Resistance officers, one of which is Commander Polly. Commander Polly answered the call, I should say, and sent us in a question. His question is, will Obi-Wan have a love interest in the Kenobi series? So I'm starting with John on this one. What do you think? Any chance we're going to get a love interest?
No, I really don't think so. There may be like a dream sequence where they kind of do an Easter egg of Satine. I don't even think they'll explore that very much. But it's a short series as we understand it, unless they're going to open it up a bit more, 4 to 6 episodes. And I don't think there's time for there to be some kind of love interest for Kenobi. He's already past all that. He's like jaded, like burnt, sad, hermit Kenobi. We're getting into that type of Kenobi now, and I don't think that would make much sense because you're getting a lot closer to Alec Guinness Kenobi. You're 10 years from that. None of that makes sense to me, and I'd be kind of shocked if they did it because you're just adding a new element into something that you're trying to do with what works. And if you just throw a new wrench in there and hoping it works, that doesn't make a lot of sense. You already have the Kenobi going. You don't need to try to mess with it too much. Keep it to where it works, and it will. So I really don't think it's going to happen. That'd be weird, I think, to me.
Lacey, what do you think? Any chance that we're going to get some sort of reference to his past?
I agree with John 100%. I don't think we're going to get anything except if it's like a flashback or something with Satine. But I don't think he's getting like a new love interest.
Yeah, I gotta say the new love interest is like 100% off for me. I'd be very surprised if they tried to do that. And I think as much as Solo kind of successfully threw the casual audience for a loop, and they were like, "What is this Darth Maul?
Right.
Where's he coming from?" I really think that if you have like 6 episodes to tell the story, and it's kind of here, and this is the mindset, I really feel like people would be like, what are you telling me right now? You're telling me that he had like a girlfriend in like another show or something? I feel like they would almost have to reintroduce that character, and I don't know that it's worth it. I don't know. I'm with you guys, and I'm sorry to say that, Paulie, or maybe you even agree with this and you're trying to get clarification to your friends. Like, see, even all of them agree with me.
Well,
but I just don't think it's going to happen.
Also because wouldn't he have mentioned her in Revenge of the Sith, as that was much closer in timeline to when she was around than this? So even that doesn't help the argument to me if you're talking about him talking about Satine and that sort of thing. So
right.
Yeah, I mean, I like the only thing I can think is just trying, like, I mean, I could force a story. Like, if somebody was like, give me the best story that somehow involves Satine in this, or somehow, how would you bring her in? I'd be like, well, I could probably come up with something. But at the end of the day, I feel like that's forcing the hand of someone who's like, like, I want to tell a story about Obi-Wan Kenobi. And they don't think they don't even want to get into like all the crazy details of his past. They just want to tell it where he is right now. So we're gonna move on to the next question, and it also involves characters showing up. The question is: even though she hadn't met Cassian yet, will Felicity Jones make an appearance as Jyn Erso in the Cassian Andor series? So this one's bouncing back at you, Lacey. Not so much Jyn Erso the character, but will Felicity Jones be portraying that character in the show?
No, because they haven't met yet. I don't know where this question's coming from, I guess.
Even though they haven't met,
Right
is
there,
there any
baby.
chance that Felicity Jones could be in the show? So say, for instance, you cut away to Saw Gerrera.
I meant
Is there any
like
chance
background. No, I don't think so. No.
Okay. Nope, they're not pulling her in.
No.
John, what do you think?
Yes.
Really?
I do.
Interesting.
She had a clause in her contract for another option, so they can option her in, and she has to do it, for one thing. That's what we talked about the Ahsoka thing. They take care of themselves and lock these people in. And also, Felicity Jones, I believe she is from the UK, and they're going to be filming there in Pinewood.
Yes, she's British.
Yeah, but I'm saying she could just pop right over and like film a scene, like Mando style, how they're bringing all these people in. Hey, you want to be in Mando? All right. And it would make sense if they want to do that Enfys Nest, Saw Gerrera flashback leading up to why we're meeting Cassian or something like that. It doesn't mean she has to cross paths with him, like George Lucas did horribly with a lot of characters in the prequels. That drives me absolutely insane. But if you're doing a series of like, upwards of 5 hours about this era, you can dunk away for a little while and see what's going on. And it would make a lot of sense for her to pop back in, even for just maybe a few minutes. So I think she will.
I feel like I haven't given any answers in this show, so I apologize. This is one with the Force. I thought it was supposed to be quick.
It's Will of the Force.
Or Will of the Force, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, whatever. Fill in as much as you want. For me personally, I hear that, John, but I don't think she's going to be in the show.
Come on.
Yes.
I think...
Welcome.
Yeah. I think that, and I could be wrong, this kind of falls back on how much I know about her Rebel Rising story, but I really don't know that she was doing anything 5 years prior to this. I think this is when she had been moved away from Saw and doesn't have anything to do with the rebellion. And this was her lay low. And then in Rogue One, she gets yanked back into it. And she's like, I don't want to be a part of this. So at this point, I think that she is adding nothing to the story. She's stealing fruit from a vendor on some backwater planet.
She's Lyanna Halleck at this point, is what you're trying to say.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I think she's kind of doing the Cara Dune thing. Like, I was part of it, now I'm not, and then we get to see how Cara Dune gets pulled in. But this is the period of time where she's not doing anything, and that's part of the story. That's kind of the...
That bums me out, but all right.
James said my
sense.
answer better.
Yeah, yeah.
Than me.
I want to move on to the next one, though. Resistance officer submission coming from David Hornack, and he wants to know, in Mando season 2, will Tiny, aka Baby Yoda, reveal he was more mature and not the baby he was portrayed himself to be in season 1? John, do you think that he's smarter than he lets on?
I do. I think he's going to be a little chatty in season 2. I think we're going to hear him talk a bit, and that's going to be the new wave of toys, the talking Baby Yoda. And we're going to get his name, and he's going to say, no, my name is not the child. I am Dennis, or whatever. But I think he will be smarter. He's 50, and Yoda started training Jedi at 90 to 100. I think he's pretty smart, and the way he's able to understand situations and use the Force. So I think, yes, I think he was maybe being a little coy to try to feel people out and play possum. But I think we're going to be in for a bit of a surprise in season 2.
Lacey, are you in agreement with John?
So here's why this is a little tricky to me. I think that
Here's the thing.
He's more mature than he lets on. Like, I think he can talk, but I don't think that, like, he was playing tricks on people, if that makes sense. Like, I think he's too young to, like, maliciously or, like, do things to be like, yes, I'm pulling one over on them. But I think that he might be able to talk. And going back to what John said, I think the animatronic Yoda that comes out in December is coming out in December because it probably talks. So they held that toy until December, because if it didn't talk, why would you wait until December to have it come out? And I know it's like, obviously toy makers are like Christmas, but the one that's out now doesn't talk and it sold like hotcakes. So why wouldn't you put it out now if it doesn't?
Favreau's like, I don't care about Black Friday. You're protecting this secret.
I mean, he did it for the first season, so maybe it talks, because all we've seen so far with the animatronic one is it being presented like at Toy Fair or on GMA, and it just makes cooing noises, but it might be able to talk by the time it comes out. So I think, yes, it's more mature than we think it is, but I don't think it's like, I'll get them.
Oh, I didn't mean it like that. I meant it that...
I'm not saying you did. I'm just saying I think people have said that in the past.
Oh, okay.
As like, oh, I think he is way more mature than he thinks and he knows what's going on and he's playing baby. And I was like, I don't know if that's the case.
Yeah.
I don't know. I could see that being the case, but I still think that's Baby Yoda at the age she's at. You know, and I don't think there's going to be any sort of, as Lacey was saying, like pull over or playing possum, as John was saying. I don't know. I almost tend to more believe that they could play with the idea of what training Jedi at 90 even meant. If I don't know. I think if the thing talks, I think that's such a weird thing to just be like, oh, you know, like, what are you doing? Just don't talk. Like, why is it cooing and stuff? Like, I think that's where it's at. But there was an interview that said that the child is intelligent, or he's beyond what he lets on. But I still think that they wanted to preserve this as a child. So he's smart, he's intelligent, but he's maybe hasn't figured it all out yet, and maybe speech is like one of the last things that it needs to work on. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, I understand the scenario. I'll figure out language and stuff later.
Right.
Like, so when it does start talking, it speaks intelligently. But I think right now, and probably for the foreseeable future, they want to keep Baby Yoda as Baby Yoda as they can. Just my opinion.
That's how it goes.
We got one more?
That's how it goes. We share opinions. And they listen.
Well, we got one more with Baby Yoda for Will of the Force. And that question is, will we ever see Force Ghost Yoda, the OG, the original, communicate with Tiny, a.k.a. Baby Yoda? So this question is pretty broad because it starts with ever, right? Will we ever see this? Lacey, what do you think? This is the episode. This is the one where you can talk.
I know. I'm thinking, like, my initial response was, very funny. The initial response was no in The Mandalorian, because it doesn't really make sense right now. Like, why would Yoda be talking? But then you said ever. And I'm like, well, ever, if we see Baby Yoda later in another movie with Rey, yeah, Yoda could potentially show up. So I'm going to say yes, because I don't want to shut the door on Yoda ever showing up, because we never thought we'd see Yoda again, and he showed up in The Last Jedi. So,
well, what do you think, John?
Yes.
No, I don't think so. I think it would be cool. I think it would be like a sweet moment too, kind of like the old generation, the old guard, and the new. I think that could be a powerful Star Wars moment if they capture that the right way. So I would love to see it, but I don't think it's going to happen. So no.
Man, Lacey is right. The word ever is very tricky. But I fall back on what little I know about Force Ghosts, which tends to be that there's a reason they show up, and they show up to kind of finish or help people that they specifically worked with when they were alive. Now, they could still write that story. Baby Yoda was alive at the same time Yoda was alive. Absolutely. But it hasn't been told yet. So I'm assuming that they haven't met. And assuming that they haven't met, they would have no reason to communicate through the cosmic force. That's it.
Yeah.
Sweet.
That's my take. So I'm going to go with no.
Real quick, have people already like discussed like whether that could be the child of Yoda? Has that been like beaten to death by people? We haven't really talked about that because we brushed it aside, I think, right?
Well, if I remember correctly, when we first were introduced to Baby Yoda, the first thing was, well, we only know of two other of this species. One was male, one was female. Mm-hmm. They clearly knew each other.
Which we still don't know what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think the question of is Baby Yoda the child of Yoda and Yaddle is a possibility. It's still in the realm, right? It's still there.
Like, has Yoda ever gotten wet? Like, what if it's like Gremlins, where they don't even like reproduce the right way? Like,
that's not the meaning I thought you were going with.
Yeah, you know what, James? You're getting saucy these days.
Well, all right. But no, I mean, I don't know. I tend to think with the Mandalorian cloning symbol that it probably has something to do with cloning and force recreation and, I don't know, rebirth or something. Not really rebirth, but you know what I mean, like some sort of clone or something. Yeah. That's it. You guys want to end Will of the Force and head on to the next section? What's it called, Lacey?
Patreon Pod Race.
That's the one.
All right, guys, it's time for the Patreon Pod Race. So there are a lot of different ways that you can support us. You can like this video, comment, subscribe, etc. You can also follow us on Twitter at RBATSWNN. Or you could support us on Patreon at patreon.com/resistancebroadcast. There's all different tiers and different types of access and content that you can be a part of. And our top tiers, our generals, get to be a part of the show. So first of all, before we kick this off, I want to thank our generals, Camelo, Andrew Staley, Jeremie Myers, Neel Shah, David Probus, John Risi, Micah Harrison, Tampa Movie Guy, Michael Gaines, Jetta Rosewater, and Val Trichkov. So thank you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes.
So, Patreon Pod Race is where we give one general each week a chance to be a part of the show, and they answer a question that we give to them, and they have 60 seconds or less to answer. So this week we have General David Probus, who's General Greybeard, part of the Beard Squadron, as you'll soon find out. And we asked him, what is your favorite special effects sequence in all of Star Wars? And bonus, since you're a big quote guy, what is your favorite Star Wars quote? So, David, take it away.
Ow. Oh, hey, y'all. What's up? General Greybeard here. Just doing a little shaving. Be careful when you're shaving with Vader's saber. Burns a little hot. Kind of like Vader did on Mustafar, but you know how that is. Anyway, so my favorite special effects sequence in Star Wars has to be the Vader scene at Rogue One. It's not really high tech, but there's a lot of like simple, wire tricks, things like that, pyros, smoke tricks that are all put together and make that scene look really, really good. And just love that scene. And also, I was thinking about what my favorite quote in Star Wars is. I'm a dark side guy, as you can see there. And my favorite quote would be, "The dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural." Hope you're doing well, and everybody's staying safe. Beard Squadron is out.
Wow. So that is quite the quarantine technique of shaving with the lightsaber. I wouldn't advise it, but I understand why. Great answer. John, what do you think?
Yeah.
Well, first off, the quote, absolutely. You must have just freaked then when you saw them call it back in the Rise of Skywalker. Unless that version put you over the top that it's your favorite quote, but I love that quote too. So good call there. And then the Vader scene. I mean, what else can you say about it? Just classic. I think it put Rogue One over the top for a lot of people. Finally seeing that version of Vader. slicing guys up on the ceiling that he forgot about. That's my favorite part. I don't know if that's yours, but great scene. I'm surprised you picked that considering all the grand special effects that have been in Star Wars, but when you break it down to simplicities, it took a lot to make that scene happen, and special effects were a big part of that. So good on you there. And dude, thanks for being just the coolest of the cool, making up the Beard Squadron thing with you and General Beard, John Risi. Love you guys. Thanks for always being positive, being great in the chats, being part of the TRB community, and being one of our most beardly generals. Thanks, man.
James?
Yeah, I think what John was saying about that particular scene, I think everybody wanted that scene to be great, so they loved it. You know what I mean? They're like, oh my God, is Vader going to do a thing? And he turns on the saber and stuff. They're like, all right, this is about to get awesome. It's about to get like my favorite thing ever, right? And they just watch it with like pure childlike, happiness. About that quote, it's funny too, because, it's almost one of those things that's like, this is an amazing quote from the prequels, and they wanted to bring it back, so they brought it back in TROS, and it just made me think, like, does Palpatine think that's a callback to his own quote, Yeah. Like, I'm living my life. If there was ever a time when I said something and I was like, oh man, I bet that that really impacted the people that I said that to. I'm going to wait like 30 years, and then I'm going to say that line again and be like, if they ever make my story a movie, fans are going to be like, oh, who wrote that line in there? It's like, I wrote that line in there. Yeah. I went back. I did a callback on my own life and my own dialogue. Boom. Love it.
Anything else?
Oh, and I mean, great video. Thanks. You did an awesome job. I love the lightsaber. Thanks for being a general.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's the best scene in Rogue One. I will fight people, Vader style, who don't agree with me. It's so good. And I remember like squealing in the movie theater when it happened, because you just grow up wanting to see Vader do like crazy stuff like that. And then when you finally get to see it in action, it's one of those things that you're like, yes, this is what I've always wanted. Mm-hmm. But yeah, David, you did a great job. Thank you so much for being a patron. And again, if you guys want to get involved, you can head over to patreon.com/Resistance Broadcast. Now we're going to head over to John for a special interview.
Yes. So thank you, Lacey, and thank you, patrons. So now usually we do a discussion of different forms and varieties, but sometimes we have guests and we do interviews, and sometimes we do those ahead of time, and that's what we did here. We were able to be joined by Yoshi Vu, who was senior generalist and environment artist for Mandalorian and The Rise of Skywalker, and he sat down with us for a good chunk of time. We got to pick his brain on what it's like to do it. And he was really great. We really enjoyed it, as you heard us talk about in the top of the show. So let's send it to us right now, talking with Yoshi Vu.
Obi-Wan once thought as you do.
Yoshi, thanks so much for joining us on the Resistance broadcast. Glad to have you.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
All right.
Digitally,
right. It's a crazy time in the world, but it's it's funny, we do this all the time because the three of us are in 3 different locations, so this is normal for us, and it's weird that this is new for a lot of people to adjust to, but for us, when we're doing this and doing the podcast, we feel normal. So this is the only normal thing going on right now.
We were ahead before we knew we were ahead.
Yeah, it's funny seeing people like, well, how do I talk to people? I don't want to talk to people. And I'm like, that's all we can do, man. But so before we get into what you did specifically and get into The Mandalorian and The Rise of Skywalker, as a senior generalist and environmental artist, for our audience, can you kind of explain what that job is and what you do in that role for ILM and in other areas?
So it's kind of a jack of all trades position. Little concept, little matte painting. Mostly what I primarily do myself is environment modeling. So that's pretty much it. We do compositing as well. It's kind of the Swiss Army knife of each studio is the generalist department. I was also at Blur Studio prior to that, and it kind of works the same way there. The reason is because as a generalist, it's a good way to end the pipeline, I guess you could say, or get close to the end, because instead of sending something back, if you need something changed, we can just do it there because we know how to do all, if not most, of the different facets of the pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so are you saying it's the last stuff that needs to be done before final? Is that a fair way to put that?
Close. It's not the last step. The last step for me, I think, is compositing and color correction and all that nice stuff at the end. But as far as the 3D parts go, it's kind of the end. That's where it ends.
Okay, great. Now, I guess before we hop into Mando, in terms of physical, because the word matte painting, everyone thinks of the old backdrops and like The Empire Strikes Back and Hoth and that sort of stuff. Did you go back and do any kind of just in general with your career into how it used to go down, or have you just been all in on new technology and that sort of thing? Is any kind of inspirations based on the old school guard? Do you work with anybody who's familiar with doing that sort of stuff? Anything like that?
So I am all about the new, but using the old techniques, if that makes any sense. So all the digital brushes I use all emulate real brushes because because you have things like happy accidents. A brush stroke is never going to be perfect. You have little imperfections in it, and that adds to it. So we try to recreate it digitally, just not because it's better looking. I think it's just better as an artist working to work that way, because you have Control Z, which you don't have when you're oil painting or acrylic painting. You put it down, that's kind of it, unless you can cover it up. So that's the main thing to me. Same thing with digital modeling as opposed to physical prop building. I love both. I don't want to make it sound like I'm all digital because I'm not. I'm all for whatever works the best and looks the best in any given situation. I'm a film buff at the end of the day, and that's all I care about is the end result. So it doesn't matter how we get there. It's, as long as everybody loves it when they see it, that's all that matters.
Are you actually, when you watch the show, are you happy generally with what you came out with, or do you notice the little things you're like, we never quite got that right?
So I
something maybe nobody would even notice, but
I can't get too much into specifics about how Lucasfilm runs things, because I'm not 100% sure on what I can say, but I will say that ILM has been held in high regard in terms of visual effects, and being there, I completely understand why. It's you're surrounded by extremely talented people, and I wouldn't say they nitpick, but they're very particular with everything they want. They require a certain level of quality and skill, and so the fact that I somehow tricked my way into there is kind of cool, but but
that's cool though. I like hearing that.
Yeah, it is a very, everybody's a true artist there. I guess I could say that. So I can't think of anything specifically that it was like, oh man, we couldn't finish that, because I'm sure, as well as you could probably assume, with something like Star Wars, you don't want to cut any corners.
Right.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
I saw in your Twitter account, I might have creeped a little bit, that you had an old school picture from like 1999 of you in like Jedi garb with your friend, and now you both kind of worked for ILM and working on Star Wars. First of all, have you always wanted to work on Star Wars before we really get into the nitty gritty of what you do? And like, how is it just being able to say that you've worked on it, being that you started from a fan role and now you're in that professional role?
So it doesn't feel like I'm on the other side of it yet, if that makes any sense. I mean, I know technically I am, but I just feel like I'm a fan that got a really, really cool collector's item, which is my name in the credits. That's kind of what it feels like. So yes, that picture was with one of my best friends, David Espinoza. We went to high school together. He worked at a comic book store called Mile High Comics, where he's a huge Star Wars geek. I think he was in the Orange County Register, or one of the newspapers, the local newspapers, for having like a huge Star Wars collection when he was 15. They came and like took pictures of his room.
That's so funny.
So
That's awesome.
that's how we became friends, because we were both, big Star Wars fans, and he worked at a comic book store. And of course, being 15, the kid that works at the comic book store, you want to be his friend because you think you're going to get some free stuff or something.
Yeah.
But
did you?
no, I got a good friend out of it though. So
Yeah, there you go.
can't
There you
put
go.
a price on that. But we were trying to do Star Wars fan films, and unfortunately at the time our skills in doing such things were very limited. So
Right.
we settled on taking pictures at school and trying to Photoshop it with, I think, Photoshop 5 at the time, and it was in 99, and we were like 15 or 16 and thought nothing of it. 20 years later, we're still working towards the same goal. And I wanted to give David props too, because right after high school, he beelined for his goal. I joined the military first, but he beelined for his goal, and he was actually an artist on Star Wars and Knights of the Old Republic 2.
Nice.
He painted a pretty iconic photo of a picture of Darth Nihilus. It might be a picture, a digital painting you've seen with the lightsaber glow.
Sure.
And he's looking straight. Yeah, so he painted that, and I saw that, and I remember thinking like, holy crap, you worked on a Star Wars thing. I thought
You
that was
beat me.
done. Yeah, I mean, after the prequels, I thought
The
like,
biggest
oh,
we'll
that's-
ever get.
Yeah. After the prequels, I thought, oh well, that's it. We're not
But you were
getting
like,
any more.
do you have every Nintendo game though? Because I do. Okay.
Every Nintendo game ever made, or every Star Wars Nintendo game?
Yeah, right. So now we want to get into kind of what the work you did on The Mandalorian, but did you, and you can be honest or you can not, whatever, but did you take an HD 4K screenshot of your name in the credits, have it printed and framed on your wall?
I did not.
Okay.
But
'Cause I would have done that.
yes, I thought about it, but instead I just took, like I have back there, I have my episode 9 poster, and I have a Mandalorian poster, and I had pretty much everyone in the studio that worked on it sign it for me.
Oh,
That's
fun.
amazing.
Oh, yeah.
So I held
Yeah.
on to it, and
Very
by
cool.
sheer coincidence, I had worked on an independent movie called Anonymous Killers, and it starred a guy named Dominic Pace, and it turns out he's in The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was just a random indie movie, and I don't usually work on indie movie. It was just a friend, a friend of a friend called me and said, "Hey, I need some help on my indie movie." I'm like, "Yeah, I'll help you out."
Sure.
And
Right.
it's this guy, Dominic Pace, and he's in The Mandalorian, and I'm finishing up Mandalorian. I'm about to come back to the United States, and the director of Anonymous Killers, he's like, "Hey, you want to come to the premiere?" I'm like, "Oh yeah." So I bring the Mandalorian poster with me to the premiere,
Oh, right
and
on.
I see him there, and I'm like, "Hey, what's up, dude? Would you sign my poster? You're in The Mandalorian." I'm just trying to get everybody on here, so
Oh, that's
that was kind of cool.
Yeah, I saw him in LA when I'm trying to think. So we went out for the Rise of Skywalker, I think, and I saw him on the street just walking around, and I was with somebody else, and they kind of stopped and started chatting, and he gave us these little like 5x7s with his character on it and signed it for my son. So I have that upstairs, which my son's only 1, so he doesn't appreciate it yet, but one day I'm sure he'll appreciate it. But speaking of Mando, let's kind of get into it. So you worked on one chapter, and it was Sanctuary, the one with the village, and that's,
you're gonna hate
that's
me.
it,
I don't
right?
know the name off the top of my head. It's the 4th episode.
Yeah.
So whichever that
Yeah,
one
I think it
is.
was Sanctuary. I think that's what it was called.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the AT-ST attack scene. That was one of them.
Okay. So why don't you just get into the work you did on it, and whatever you can divulge about the process and what you brought to the table for that episode.
So for that particular sequence, I was an environment artist and a generalist, so I was kind of helping out with making the environments, the little huts and stuff. I did the sequence where Cara Dune, played by the awesome Gina Carano, who I think is just gorgeous, but she pops out and shoots, and that's I made that little environment. But there's also a scene where the Mando is looking out a window and he takes off his helmet, but you don't really see it. It's like out of frame. He's eating. So when he looks out the window there, I did that environment, which is part matte painting, part CG. So
That's really cool.
I'm gonna go back and rewatch all this stuff.
I got her now. I got her now. So I'm thinking about, like you're saying, what is it? Control Z? Is that the move? to go back?
Yes, it is.
Because you said you dropped the line happy mistakes or happy accidents. That made me think of Bob Ross, right? And I'm just thinking like you said, those things didn't exist. So when you kind of like go for it, are you, because the technology's there, it must be a different world where you can really take some risks knowing you could just bop back out, where back in the day they're like, we have to scrap this whole thing and do it again. So do you feel because of the technologies there, you can take more risks which lead to a better product in the end?
Absolutely. You can work in layers and sections. For example, I mean, this is theoretic. Let's say I paint a scene or a background and I paint like I don't know, a wrecked AT-AT back there. And I go, oh, you know what? I need that thing closer. Instead of having to repaint it, you can just grab it, scale it up, and there you go.
Oh man.
So, working like that, you can go, oh, I'm putting a bundle of trees here. I don't like that. Let me move that over here. Whereas before that's kind of it. Start over.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So that is a huge plus on the process, and it definitely allows you to look at things differently because you can quickly look dev, I guess you could say. You can quickly go, how does this look? Nah, I don't like it. How does this look? Okay, that looks better, maybe. And that's also how, and this is not, a lot of things I'm telling you is not specific to Lucasfilm so much as just major studios in general. But my supervisor works that way when he looks at my, most of my supervisors anyway, everywhere I've been, they'll look at something you did and they'll paint over it. Hey, add a little more light here. This could be a little piece over here. Maybe add something to obstruct the view here. That looks interesting. Things like that really give you a sense of direction in what you're doing.
I have a question. You mentioned your supervisor. How up the charts do you go with people you work with? Like, for instance, Bryce Dallas Howard was the director on that episode. Do you have any interactions with her, or how far up the chain do you go?
I was in Singapore, so I basically just sat at a desk. I don't go on set. It's not as glamorous as it seems. I don't get to hang out with all the actors and stuff. That's why that's why I have to go to conventions just like everybody else to get autographs.
Yeah, right. Is it a thing though where you'll get, because my understanding is that directors get kind of like final approval on what gets made. So do you get feedback from the director's offices at least saying like they didn't like that, you need to change this? Is there any, like you say it's towards the end of the process, but is there any like pushback we need
Yeah, I mean, you guys know how it goes, right? I mean, it doesn't matter how far along in a film or TV show you are. Sometimes changes happen until the end. It is what it is. I mean, hell, I think I was working on Green Lantern up until a week before release, which is just ridiculous. But
right.
We do get notes from up top, and sometimes you do have to start things over. It is what it is,
Right.
So you try to fight it if you can.
Sure.
Yeah.
You can, I don't want to say fight it. You try to make a legitimate argument to keep your artwork certain times or certain ways, and sometimes you win, sometimes you don't.
Yep.
But certain directors and clients and supervisors are more easygoing than others. Some have a very clear vision of what they want. Others are more like, oh, do your thing, make it look cool.
So, yeah.
Right.
Is it a situation for you personally in your mind, like going into a project knowing like, oh, well, Bryce Dallas Howard is directing this episode I'm working on. This is her first directing job. So I'm not going to worry about pushback here. I'm just going to do what I got to do and it's going to be good to go. Or are you thinking like, this is Disney Star Wars and this is Jon Favreau's thing? Is it ever in your mind on who's pulling the strings, or is it just the same process for you no matter what job you're on?
For me, it's the same process. It's always, I just, buckle down and do the best that I can do and put in 100%. That's kind of par for the course. I feel like that's how it should be, especially, but that's not to say that when working on something you enjoy, there's not a little extra incentive or, motivation, I guess you could say.
Sure.
I get that.
Like a lot of other things. For example, I worked on Marvel properties as well, and while I did enjoy comic books and cartoons as a kid, and I watched the X-Men cartoons growing up, I was not as big into it. So And I just want to clarify, this wasn't while I was at Lucasfilm, but at another studio. There's certain things I did for certain Marvel properties where me not being as familiar with it, I just kind of made it up. I was like, oh, what is this supposed to look like? I don't know. But with something like Star Wars, I would never
Right.
just make something up like that. No way. You can't do that.
Right.
Like, you will get eaten
Right.
alive. I would have eaten
Right.
the people alive as a fan
Yeah.
watching. Like, no, that's
Right.
not right.
Respect.
So,
Respect.
so
yeah.
it's all about going into the archives and pulling out the original matte paintings and looking at them carefully. Like, okay, I have to find out what made this unique, what made it special, what's iconic about it, and how do I pay tribute to this in the best way
Yes.
possible while still completing
So
my
cool.
job, and portraying a different story.
So you worked on
Absolutely.
The Mandalorian and The Rise of Skywalker.
Yes.
Was the process different from TV to movie for Star Wars, or was it very similar?
It's more or less the same. I guess it would be pretty obvious. Normally, having worked on both television and film prior,
Sure.
usually the process for TV, I would say it's several milestones behind movies, if that makes any sense. Basically,
Right.
in a movie, when you bring a shot into dailies, it's like, oh, tweak this, okay, tweak that, okay, and we'll keep doing it until it looks perfect. Whereas in a TV show, we might only do half that process. It's like,
Got
good enough.
Is it
get
because
out.
of time compared to
it's
the movie?
time,
Like the movie, you
budget.
have more time?
Yes, they have the budget for it. I mean, if you're going to pay an artist 10 days to work on something versus 3, you're going to get the results accordingly.
Got it. Right.
It is what it is.
Right.
But working on Mandalorian, I got to say, it was a little different. You saw, you watched it, right? It looks
Yeah,
great.
Yeah.
oh,
It's some
yeah.
high quality work.
Haven't
Yeah.
caught it yet. No, I'm just
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
I was about to say.
So, we want to shift to what you were doing for the Rise of Skywalker, but I think the three of us would like to know, keeping secrets of stuff has to be like torture for you internally, even though you do it because you're a professional. But the Baby Yoda thing was kept under wraps by everybody. Everyone was kind of surprised by that. Even the biggest leakers around didn't really pick up on that one. So was knowing that like, I'm on the inside, I know everything and you all don't? Or was it like, oh my God, just don't talk in your sleep type of situation for you?
It is terrible as a fan. I got to tell you. You go in and, everything's, not everything, but you go in, things are spoiled,
Yeah.
taken out of context and out of order.
Yeah.
And you see things that may or may not be cut or may be included. You don't know,
Yeah.
and so this is it's a jumble of information because you don't have any context. You're just seeing things. But for me, like I said, it's a bad thing being a fan because you watch and you're like, oh no, I didn't want to know that yet.
All right.
Like working on Mandalorian, the quote unquote baby. That was my first shot that I was assigned to. Him looking out the window, and a little
man.
child running around, like eating the little frog or whatever. And I remember I loaded up my scene. They're like, "This is your first shot assigned for the show." And I loaded up. I'm like, "Oh, what is this? This is adorable. What is this?" And I look over at my friend David, and he leans over. He goes, "What do you see?" "Oh, what is that?" And then the first thing we looked at each other and said was, "Everybody's gonna want one. Like everybody." And it's like, how do you know? Because I want one now, and it's not even done.
Right. So you didn't. So it's not a thing where you're aware of all that's going on before you get the visuals. It's just kind of like, boom, there's your shot that you're working on today.
Yes and no. I'm sure I could access,
Yeah.
everything if I wanted to, but I never tried. I don't want to. I don't want to read anything. I don't want to,
Sure.
like
Sure.
just
Because you're a fan too. You want to experience
Yeah,
it for what
absolutely.
you can without, obviously, all the other stuff.
yeah,
you're working on.
100%.
it's such a weird
so
I mean, I got
different
the
experience.
I got the
like,
Empire tattoo.
Oh, you're legit.
Nice.
yeah, I was gonna
And
say
now,
it's such
now
a,
that I wanted to add to the tattoo. Now that I've worked on episode 9, I told my wife I wanted to add on top of it in Arabesh, do or do not.
yeah,
So
Yeah.
Nice.
like, hey,
absolutely.
did it.
The world that when you see something that is kind of like a spoiler but you have no context for the spoiler, it's like we all watched that first episode having no clue that Baby Yoda was coming, but you watch the episode and go, I have no clue or like you're starting to piece together, maybe that's who they're talking about. You know, you have this unique vision of the things that you work on, and I think that's really awesome. Like it's not necessarily spoiled, like aspects of it are spoiled, but you get a watching for the first time that nobody else gets, you know. That's cool.
Yeah, that's true. That's an interesting way to look at it. Kind of like the little symbols they show you at the beginning of Ozark episodes, I guess.
Oh yeah, I never figured those out.
I gotta figure that out.
Yeah. Like,
I
a
stopped
Band-Aid, a bicycle. What? I have no idea what's happening on Ozark. All right, so episode 9. You obviously being a Star Wars fan, this is the end of the Skywalker saga. So maybe you had a little of those anxieties going in, like I don't want to know what's going on here. But you had to work on. Well, why don't you just tell us what you worked on for the Rise of Skywalker, and then we can pepper you with.
So I was in charge specifically of 3 shots, and I helped out with a few others. But the 3 shots that I handled were, and I'm assuming you all watched it. So spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't. I don't know why they'd be listening to this if they haven't. But when Rey is on the skiff and she's riding into the Death Star wreckage, so. The first shot looking down, a downward angle, and you see a top view. The bottom half was my stuff, and the top half was a teammate of mine. He made the top half. I made the bottom half.
Cool.
That's insane.
So
Well, yeah, because the next shot right after that is a front view of her going into it, and that's all mine. I had some help with like little things like other there. You know, obviously it's a lot for one person. So, but I was the main. Modeler for that, and then we had another guy named Asir come in and help out with little details. He put like little, cables and things like that.
That's cool.
But I did that shot, and I lit that shot, and then the immediate following shot after that, with the establishing camera panning in, and the wrecked TIE fighter and Rey's climbing up the thing.
Yeah.
Right.
So I got to make a wrecked TIE fighter.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So and I know people are telling me, we have a library. You go shh. I'm making it.
I'm making it.
I don't need
you make
the
a
library.
Did you make like a headcanon backstory for that TIE fighter pilot and why that happened and all that?
Of course, you have to. As an artist, you have to do that because it tells a story properly. I know it sounds silly, but... And I'm not going to name which comic book artist it is, but let's just say there's a comic book artist that when I was growing up, going to art school, I was taught not to do that. It's like, this character, they have all these... pouches on them and armor. Like, why do they have all those pouches? What purpose does it serve? Why do these characters have giant shoulder armor? Who are they tackling? How can they lift their arms up? Right. So when you design like that, you never put anything in just because it looks cool. It has to have a function. So when you design something, it's like, why is this way? What happened here? Why was this wrecked? And in my head, I'm thinking like, maybe when the Death Star exploded, this TIE fighter came off the hangar and the piece came with it, and maybe it hit a side before it rolled into this spot, and that's why the wing is this way. You think about that, and then you pull out all the old Star Wars cross sections books, and you're like, there's cooling tubes inside the heat exchangers on the side of the TIE fighter. They look like they're made of copper and blah blah blah, and you figure out how all of it works. Because if it's busted open, I guarantee you someone's going to notice and be like, well, in episode blah, blah, like
right.
Data fans. I mean, I'm a fan, don't get me wrong, but
you're over there like, I got this. I'm going to do this.
Yeah, I got to there's fans that, you know what I'm talking about. They recite things down to the detail, but on the technical manual, page 37, article 2, I'm like, how do you know this?
So actually, it's kind of funny because that you're saying that, because I was thinking that when you say I got to design a TIE fighter, my question is, how much do you know about that type of detail? And did you, in this case, kind of create a new TIE fighter?
No,
or did you just say like, no, it's exactly verbatim this other TIE fighter?
No. There's no redesigning. That is the Death Star 2, and the TIE fighters in there belong in Return of the Jedi, and that's to me, that's period. There's no greater exclamation. Like, you're not changing that. That's like messing with the Bible or something. I don't know.
Right.
I think where that question comes from is the whole like, those TIE fighters didn't have hyperdrive, they weren't able to go into light speed. And then in this movie, you have Kylo Ren, or you should say Ben Solo at this point, does get to Exegol using, hyperspace travel and stuff. So people were like, those TIE fighters and then they're trying to explain that. How did these ones? So I start thinking there are other types of TIE fighters on the Death Star that we've never seen before. And then you say, I got to design and I'm like, ooh, I'm kind of interested in that. But you're saying,
I don't want to say design so much.
The one
as
I
make,
designed is as classic as it gets.
So remember that guy you mentioned that would like ask you questions about if that TIE fighter was that TIE fighter on page 37?
That's this guy
James
right
is
here.
that guy.
James is the guy. Yeah.
I mean,
all right.
it was good enough that people around us would have to ask, generally, not everybody. There are plenty of Star Wars fans there, but some to greater extents than others. And some of them would have to ask me and my friend David, like, oh, does this look like it would fit into that universe? And I'm like, no, that's not right.
Right.
Oh, should we put a logo on one of the walls in the Death Star? Like, no, that didn't happen. They don't do that. There's no IKEA lamps in there. Not to say that was a real question, but
right.
On that theme, kind of to parlay off of what James was saying, is there because you were a Star Wars fan, but there's obviously other artists that maybe aren't, that are just on a job. Is there a crash course, so they can understand and be brought up to speed in terms of how to design in Star Wars for people who may not be as well versed? Or is it just like, I got to do what I got to do and then get feedback and change and tweak and story group and blah, blah, blah?
That's kind of a tough one to answer because it was such a fast pace that I didn't really get to talk to a lot of the other employees too much, other than them coming or me asking them certain questions throughout the day, work related. But I don't think it would be an issue if they weren't a fan, or they knew nothing about it, just because we all work on movies and properties every day that, we might not be familiar with. So that's where you just do your due diligence and you look at the concept art, you look at the different paintings, you look at the previous reference and go, okay, this is kind of as an artist, you can at least get like the look and feel and the tone and try to do something that fits in. And as you can see, it, for all intents and purposes, to me anyway, it works. And then you have someone awesome, and that's why you have art directors, you have supervisors, because they kind of can bring everything together. So they can go to the different artists and say, hey, go check out what this guy's doing, or send him your lighting file that you're using the light so he can match, and and give her your ship and blah blah blah. So there's someone actually coordinating and making sure everyone's on the same page. And that's just most films in general, like you would have a continuity supervisor, things like that.
Right.
So I mean, my dream right now is go ahead.
No, I was gonna say it's another thing people always point out is continuity issues. That's like a big thing with fans, especially now when you could stop every frame. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's tough too, because like I said, a lot of things it's impossible to figure out, because maybe the way they filmed it, the sets were rotated in the middle of shooting, so the blueprints wouldn't actually line up that way, things like that, so that's why if you see the making of it, the making of Rise of Skywalker, you'll see they talk about having to lay out the Death Star wreckage because we
had to build it and then break
is.
it.
Yeah, and there's like this
insane.
big map that like, oh, this has to go here. Which part am I making? Oh, this is over here from this angle. Oh, you should see that piece in the background. Hey, I need your piece. Like, that goes in here. So, we try to do our due diligence and get everything accurate and correct for you lovely people.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we appreciate that. Now, a question I have in terms of the environment, the working environment, because you seem to be like the way you're referring to your friends who's working on this, or my buddy worked on this. I worked on the bottom half. He worked on the top half. Is it like almost like a cowboy mentality, or is it very strict and like very professional? Is it a mixture of both? And is there any competition? Like, dude, I crushed you on that shot. Like, my half's better than your half. Like, is there anything to keep it loose and light? Like, give us the vibe of what it's like doing the work.
So everybody's very supportive. Most industries I go to, everybody's very supportive because we help each other out. Nobody's going to know everything. And guaranteed at some point throughout the day or your career, you're going to need help or a question from someone else, or they're going to have a solution that you don't have. So generally speaking, everybody's very friendly with each other. Now, in terms of how we split the workload, there's different tiers, junior artists, mid-tier, senior. The junior artists, they are generally the guys that do like rocks, asteroids, debris. You know, like, oh, I finished building this entire battle sequence for this movie or TV show. Here, go in and set dress and decorate with digital, rubble and stuff like that. Because
Right.
the more skilled and experienced you are, they need you taking care of the bigger pieces. The
Sure.
mid-tier guys, the mid-level artists, they generally, you can assign them bigger tasks and just tell them what to do and give them some directions. Senior level, which I was at, is for me super fun because that's when you actually have creative input to a certain extent.
Right.
You can make
Wow.
I don't want to say executive decisions, but you can make decisions. Like if I decide to change the design layout, I can change the lighting. I can change certain things if I think it works better. Now, granted, that still has to go up the pipeline and get approved.
Right.
But if it's genuinely a good idea, most of the time they'll go with it. Like, oh, I like that. That looks good. Let's run it up. Let's see what, let's see what the client thinks. And, and it's one of those things where the first time you hear like, oh, let's see what JJ thinks, you're like,
Oh man. Yeah.
yeah. And then you get something back.
Look
like,
familiar,
he loves
buddy?
it. Oh, there you go. Right.
There he is.
Like imagine it doesn't feel
That
real.
to me even
being
answers
there.
the question that I was asking earlier. Like, where's the you hear feedback from? I'm like,
Right.
Then it goes all the way to the top, in my opinion. Like, we'll send it over, see what JJ thinks, and it's like, yeah, that's awesome.
I got to try to find a way to like scam myself into meeting him. Just be like, hey, maybe you can come to my desk and show me.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I can't read.
Right.
Emails don't work. He's got to come here.
Right.
Get him on
JJ,
the
can you
first
hop
flight
over?
to Singapore. No.
Right.
Were you in Singapore to do the work for the Rise of Skywalker too? Or was that just Mandalorian?
I was there for Rise of Skywalker. Mandalorian, I jumped over to help out with a few sequences, but I was not primarily assigned to it. But when they asked me if I could help, I mean, the chance to add another Star Wars property onto your resume, I mean, who's going to say no, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Nah, I'm good.
Right.
Nah. It's cool.
So how close to when the movie came out were you doing work for 9?
I don't know if I can answer that. So
That's fine. That's fine.
I'm not
It's like
100%
came out on a
sure.
Friday, Tuesday.
Yeah.
So
An hour before showtime.
Yeah.
Thursday at 11:30 p.m.
Right, yeah, right. Let me just touch up that wing, and we'll send you on your way.
I think the
no,
worst
that's cool.
the worst thing for me was one TV show. I think it was like Blacklist Redemption, maybe. I don't remember the show, but I was working on one episode. I was there until I think like 1 a.m. and then it aired that same day at 6 p.m.
Holy
So
cow! How did
that's
that?
why I was there till 1 a.m. because it was like, no, this airs tomorrow. You cannot go home until this is done.
Oh my
like there's
God.
no way around this. Like we don't have a plan B. This is it.
Is that the James Spader show? Is that what you're talking about?
I think so. And it was something simple too. It was something like a building, like it was a CG building in the background.
Yeah.
Like, because they're standing in front of like a bank, I think, and it's supposed to be something else. So I had to make like a little building, and it was like, no. The logo's a little further down. It's more reflective. It's like,
Holy
geez,
cow.
like little things here and there.
Have you ever added something Star Wars to another show? Like you're like, oh, I'll put a poster in there or something.
I would love to, but no, I can't.
Just curious.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
it's-
I've added little Easter eggs to things here and there, but it's generally things that only I would know about, or I'd have to point it out.
Right.
Gotcha.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So seeing that you kind of work in a collaborative thing and you say that you find inspiration from other people, are there any projects that you've seen that you haven't worked on that you're like, man, that is an amazing example of visual effects, like recently in the past year?
Blade Runner 2049.
James loves
Yes.
that movie.
Oh, James loves that.
Yes.
movie.
It was I think it was
Masterpiece.
MPC, Moving Picture Company. They did the digital double for Rachel, which was outstanding.
Oh, that was crazy.
It was outstanding. Digital doubles can work. The problem is it is such a heavy amount of work. It is so much work to get it looking good. And the problem with CG in general is a lot of times clients will make changes because they know it's CG. It's not, something they filmed. It's not a prop. It's not a set. They can change it.
Right.
And that ends up biting us because now we have to go back and make changes, and that's less time that we have with each change now, and things look worse and worse. So the best example I can give is the reboot or remake, whatever you want to call it, of The Thing. People were complaining about the CG on that, but I don't think a lot of people realize they actually had practical stuff built for it. But, yeah, it was ready to go and it looked great, but because of changes up top, up high at the executive level somewhere, change it. It's like, okay, well, we don't have time to build a new prop. What do we do? It's like, well, CG it. Well, there's only X amount of time now. It's not going to look great. It is what it is. And then, me being an artist, it sucks when the movie comes out and everybody's like, see, that's why CG sucks. It's like, no.
So it must have been a tough year for you personally because of like the Sonic stuff and the cat stuff.
The funny
and you're
thing
just
is,
like,
one of my
come
coworkers
on.
directed Sonic.
What?
One of my former coworkers or teammates directed Sonic.
Oh.
Oh, wow.
Well, the second one looked great. The first one.
I heard the movie was good.
Yeah.
It made money. It did successful, and people, I think, they're going to make a sequel. I think already. I think they're already talking about doing that. So, but yeah, I heard stuff about replacements in the Rise of Skywalker, like I don't know if it was the documentary where they were saying how it was originally a tangible physical snake, and then they replaced it with CG because of varying reasons. So that example existed right there. One thing I want to get your take on. Because you didn't work on Rogue One, right? So you can talk about that as an outsider. Okay. The Tarkin thing, because you're talking about the success and you're able to do digital doubles. Do you think it was not ready yet in 2015 when they're making that movie to do a digital double of Tarkin? So that's why they had to do the Guy Henry with the facing thing? Or do you think they just thought that was the better option at the time?
I think it was one of those things where it just wasn't quite all the way there yet. And personally, I would have made some different choices. I mean, I think it did the job. I mean, who it was. The story was told. But it definitely is a product of its time in terms of the CG. You go back and it's a huge step above, Tron 2.0, right? So
Jeff Bridges, yeah.
So, it evolves like anything else.
Right.
But
can I ask you a question, too?
Yes.
Who do you think looked better, Tarkin or Leia?
Which the funny thing is it wasn't a CG Leia, so.
No, I know, but
you're talking about
as someone in that
Rogue
world.
One.
Rogue One.
I thought Tarkin looked better than Leia, but I thought it's because
boom.
I thought it because Tarkin looked like Tarkin, if not a little, just maybe not fully realistic. But I thought Leia didn't look as much as Leia as she could have, but. I mean, that's just my opinion.
It's not the answer I wanted to hear.
I
was hoping to get a little justification because I am very much in the minority where I'm like, I think Leia looked perfect, and I can tell that there's something going on with Tarkin.
Well, I think...
Yeah, I mean, it's okay to be wrong.
That debate is over now. Yoshi's ended up. So
no. I mean, it's subjective.
Yeah.
The one thing that I feel like, because I don't know the industry and how you do what you do, but one thing I do always notice is that uncanny valley with the eyes is the one thing that they aren't always able to capture. So if you had put sunglasses on Tarkin for whatever reason, I'd be like, that looks legit. But when you see his eyes, there's something not there. Is that a discussion that's had in the industry? Like, why can't we perfect the eyes?
Well, we know why we can. It's just it's a matter of getting there. It's like It's like drawing something. It's like, how can you get this more realistic? It's like, well, you just need more skills and figure out that. The problem is a human face. We look at it every day. We know exactly what it is and what it looks like. And if something's off, we can tell immediately. I mean, look at the best wax figures in the world. Right away, you're like, oh, something's off. Or even a living person looking at you who is like not paying attention, their eyes, gloss over. Right away, you're like, hey, you're not there. So imagine trying to capture that digitally. It is so hard. The best way, I think, is just to leave the eyes. Leave them alone. Use the real eyes. Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, there's a few times where it works. Like, for example, Blade Runner, I thought they did a good job. Ironically, Davy Jones in the Pirates movies, I thought they did a good job.
Oh, so good. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought they did a great job.
Yeah.
So, it's not something I can personally pinpoint.
Mm-hmm.
I just know it's like, oh, we know it's there. We know it's that 1% away. It's just,
right.
how do we close that gap? It's like an infinite gap that just won't close.
Right.
I mean, I feel like we're getting there. And going off of that, my personal choice for Tarkin in Rogue One was to basically have him not face the camera. Like there's times where he's facing out the window and you can see his reflection.
Yes.
And you can see that
That's
it's
what I
him.
wanted. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like that's what I would have done there. So
wow. Yeah, I mean
okay.
that's fair. That's fair. They went for it. They're like, we're gonna zoom in on his eyeball. We're gonna go right in there. But I guess they thought maybe everyone knows Peter Cushing's not here, so we're not fooling anybody. So let's just bring back Tarkin. But I agree with you. When the first shot, when you see him and the reflection of the Death Star through the window, I'm like, holy cow, that's amazing.
I thought too the Leia one, specifically like where he hands her the thing, they could have ended it with him handing it to her with her back facing the camera, and I would have been like, cool, I know that's Leia, it's clearly Leia. And it was when they came around and she said something that I was like, that's not Leia. But it's okay though.
Like,
it's fine. I just
hey, stuff happens. What can you do,
happens. Right? Yeah.
So how'd you feel
right,
about young Luke and Leia in Rise of Skywalker?
Oh, I loved it. I thought Mark Hamill looked great. Yeah. And I thought Leia looked good too, but I feel like Mark looked a little bit better. But I think it's because Leia was moving, whereas Mark was just kind of sitting.
Yeah. Well, I think it's also they chose like the Return of the Jedi Leia. She's like a little thinner, so I think she's not as instantly recognizable.
Right.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. What did you think of it?
I thought Luke looked great, but like I said, I think the Leia there was something a little weird about it to me. But overall, I thought they did a really good job.
Yeah.
I mean, especially since the whole promise was to not use digital double, so that wasn't a CG head. That was actually footage. So.
Right. That was Billy Lord, and they mapped over her with the shot from Leia and talking to Luke.
See, like that person's name. I didn't know that person's name.
Yeah,
that's her daughter. That's Carrie Fisher's daughter.
Yeah. See.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that. Like that sounds terrible, right? Like I'm I'm one of those like I don't know the real life people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know what, man? You brought the Death Star to life. Okay, so that's all that matters to me.
She plays a character in the movies too, but is very background, barely any lines. You might not even recognize from that either.
Yeah,
but
it's possible. Well, Yoshi, thank you so much for joining us. Before we get out of here, obviously, I know you wanted to just clarify that you're speaking on behalf of yourself, right?
Yes, that is correct. I am not representing anybody because I am currently not working at Lucasfilm anyway. I am at home like everybody else.
Yeah.
And why don't you let us know if you have a website where you can be reached, other things you may want to plug, and obviously your social media where people can find you and hit you up.
I'm sorry, you broke off for a second. If you're talking now, I cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, this is just outstanding, isn't it?
That might be on our end. Yeah. All right. And then before we let you go, why don't you let us know where people can find you online, if you have a website, anything you want to plug. Go ahead.
I have a website at artificialempire.com. That's more of a work website though, so I don't know what you'd find on there. Somewhere you can see some of my artwork on there, but you can also follow me on Twitter at VuYoshi. That's at VuYoshi. And I also have an Instagram at Yoshi Vu Art. So not necessarily all Star Wars related though, so
Hey, that's all right. Sometimes we like to get into other movies too, but we love to have you back sometime. Thanks for hopping in the base with us, and we'll obviously chat with you online, and we really appreciate it, Yoshi. Thank you so much, man.
All right, thank you. You have a good one.
You too. So there you have it, guys. I hope you guys really enjoyed that interview. We had an absolute blast. Guys, I know we talked about it at the top of the show. It was awesome speaking with Yoshi. Any final thoughts before we move on here?
He was just awesome.
Yeah, I'd love to have him back.
Yeah, me too. And he actually, said he would love to play some games in the future. So who knows? Maybe we can get him on here and do little quote games, or who knows. But it's always good, from my opinion, to remind fans, us included especially, that so many people go into working on these things, and it's not just a blanket, it's Disney, or it's this. It's like, that's like James, you said, this guy's a fan, and he put his heart right into creating those environments for us. And I just think that was great. So thank you again, Yoshi. Hit him up online and all that stuff, and hopefully we'll see him around. But right now, it's time to hear from you guys, and we're going to send it to Lacey for Resistance Transmission. So Lacey, what's the deal this week?
Guys, it's time for Resistance Transmissions. So the way that this works is every week, John puts up a crazy, wacky situation, and you guys give your answers. So I've never read this scenario or what's going on. I don't know your answers, and I read them live, and we see what happens. So the scenario is, the manager at Tashi Station had a set of power converters on hold for someone named Luke, but he never showed up. What voice message does the manager leave on the Lars answering machine that Luke will never get?
You can only imagine what they got into here.
Oh, here we go. All right. First up is Mello at a Gray Jedi, who said, Luke, how are you? We have those power converters that you ordered the other day. Just FYI, if you do not pick them up in one rotation, I have to put them back on the shelves. Also, you looked great with that hat. Take care, Cammy. By the way,
Nice.
what is that smell coming from your farm?
Oh my God. So he hits us with the deleted scene reference and the decaying bodies reference.
I thought it was mildew because he's a moisture farmer. No one's been attending to the...
Oh, like a mossy type of...
I think he meant burning corpses.
Oh, jeez. What was the line that you used last week where the person, they commented with it and said it would be a good band name? Was it Rotting Corpses or something like that?
Barbecue corpses, I think, or something.
Barbecued corpses.
Yeah. Carcasses. Corpses.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
One of those.
Yeah.
Next up is Alex Zukas at Zubaka, who said, Hey, this is Watto calling from Tashi Station, calling for some deadbeat Luke who owes me a lot of money. You have one more day to pick up. No money, no deal, no parts. And no one else has power converters for your model Skyhopper. I guarantee that.
Yeah.
Nice. Watto making his return.
I can't really do a Watto. Sorry. Next is Tampa Movie Guy at Tampa Movie Guy, who said,
Gary.
We have a set of power converters here for someone named Luke who gave us this number. Luke, your power isn't going to convert itself. Come on down and get these power converters, and I'll throw in a set of stainless steel barbecue utensils absolutely free.
Oh my God. Is that a cannibal joke? Is he eating the people?
No.
John, you're acting like you don't know. You didn't read these. You're like borderline. You wrote them, and you're trying to act like they're from a fake,
What?
from a real fan or something.
Okay. The fourth wall.
Next is Matt Skywalker at MIB1188, who said, Hi, Owen. This is Kevin down at Tashi. Wanted to see...
I picked this because he said Kevin. Like, I just love when people use normal, regular dude names.
Wanted to see if you still wanted noise in background. Hey, you in the dark helmet. We're not open yet. Yeah, we sell droids. What do you... Choking sounds, thud, other noise. Tear this place apart. Find those plans. So I'm assuming it's Darth Vader.
Yeah, Darth Vader got him. Yeah.
Next is Mark at the Kind of Vakins, who said, This is Biggs, Mr. Biggerton, the manager at Tashi Station. We have some power converters for Luke to come pick up. Yeah, he needs to come right away. Not to waste time with his friends or anything. Tell him to bring his Xbox controller, though.
Pigs trying to get him out. I like it.
Next is Adam Odell at Odell Adam, who said, "This message is for Luke, checks notes, Skywalker. Oh my god, are you related to the famous Anakin Skywalker? I've got to post this to my Imperial Spacebook page. The whole galaxy is going to know about this. Wow. Anyway, get your power converters tomorrow or we're letting them go."
Nice.
Next up is JF Kocher, who said, "Hello, this is Watto from Tashi Station Farmers Co-op." People love Watto.
Yeah.
I got those power converters you ordered. Hey, by the way, is this the same Lars Moister farm? I was wondering how Shmi is doing. Anyway, those converters are here at parts. Stop by anytime. Thanks.
Oof. Yeah.
All right. Next is
Watto still alive?
I think so.
I think he made it all the way to like Rise of Skywalker.
He's very like, he's like a cockroach. You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't go away.
I feel like there was a significant age difference that they show. Like, he looks a lot older, so he's probably dead.
Huh.
But by the end of the thing.
Could be.
next is Papa Palpatine 11 at
Papa Palpatine?
Papa
Yeah.
Palpatine?
Darren, but it's like Darren with 2 1s. N. And he said, "Oh wow, you have an answering machine. This is weird. Okay, well, this is... No, I can't." Hangs up. And last but not least is Demon Cobra at Daddy X Dagger. And he said, "This is Tashi Station calling about those power converters. We've been trying to reach you and no one has been by the station. We're getting a little worried. There was an Imperial patrol asking about you guys, so we told them where you live so they can come check on you."
What a mistake.
Oh my goodness.
Watto mistake?
Ba-dum-bum. Guys,
Ba-dum-bum.
thank you so much for your answers. If you want to be on the show, make sure to follow us on Twitter at RBATSWNN. Every week, John puts up some crazy scenario, and you guys give your crazy answers, and then I read them. Back to you, John.
Guys, thank you so much for listening and watching, being a part of the Resistance. We hope you enjoyed the interview with Yoshi Vu and the rest of our show. Make sure you do subscribe to the podcast. You can do that on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spotify, or if you're watching on YouTube, share it with a friend. We are growing, and a lot of that has to do with you spreading the word and sharing with people. So don't take that for granted. We really need you to let other Star Wars fans know about us, and because that's how people find out, because a lot of people don't listen to podcasts, let alone Star Wars podcasts. So spread the word and bring your friends in, because it's always fun when you have other friends to talk about TRB with. Make sure you're also going to StarWarsNewsNet.com every day for all of your Star Wars news, reviews, editorials, information, and more. As we said before about Teespring, go check out our new merch. And the Patreon stuff we covered earlier as well. So that's pretty much that. You guys can find me on Twitter at Johnny Hoey and writing and editing at StarWarsNewsNet.com all the time. James?
You can find me on this show Mondays and Thursdays, 9 a.m. roughly, and 12 p.m. in the comments. Every time the episode comes out, Eastern time. But mostly on Twitter and Instagram at Myra Trunks.
Absolutely. Yeah, the comments for sure. Lacey?
People can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Lacey Gilleran, loving Star Wars, and also, starting tomorrow, returning on the Mando Fan Show.
Oh, yeah.
On YouTube.
Boom.
Yeah, I host that. I should have remembered that.
It's okay. I host it now.
Oh, you're taking that over too now?
Just kidding.
Look at me.
Yeah, right.
I'm the captain now, yeah.
I am the captain.
So tomorrow evening we will be posting the return of the Mando Fan Show, where we're going to be talking about the first 2 episodes of the I believe they call it Disney Galleries, but it's the documentary about the making of the Mandalorian, which is going to be talking about some pretty cool stuff. So we hope you join us, and we'll see you then. And of course, we hope you enjoy your weekends too, and we'll be back with another episode of the Resistance broadcast on Monday morning. So So until next time, we'll see you around, kids.
Bye.